In 1979, a man named Carl Weisner had just finished his day's work as a lumberjack in Rangel, Alaska. He and his 3 colleagues are driving back to the town in their trucks, with Carl following behind. All of a sudden, Carl's radio malfunctions and his colleague's truck in front of him flips over. Carl slams on the brakes and rushes over to check his colleagues in their truck. To his surprise, a spinning UFO appears in front of him, making him run towards the forest. The UFO catches up to Carl and emits a blue light over him. He is unable to move his body and is eventually taken by the UFO. In the present day, a young man named Isaac Cypress goes to the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California, where he works as a computer engineer. He meets with his colleagues, Beck and Greta, and together they monitor the signals and movement of different satellites. Beck brings up a particular signal coming from Canada that appears frequently despite having no grounded satellites over there. In turn, Isaac intercepts the frequency of the signal from Canada and sends it over to space from one of their satellites, not knowing what it was. That night, Isaac receives another signal from an unknown origin. He grows intrigued by it but does not do anything. After his shift, he meets with his counselor, who suggests he try doing a video diary to help him express his inner feelings properly. From then on, Isaac records video diary logs, talking about his personal thoughts and leaving random warm messages for his family. The next day, Isaac goes for a hike in the woods, recording another video diary entry about his work in NASA. Just then, a huge burning object falls from the sky, catching the attention of Isaac and the rest of the people in the city. Isaac decides to check the fallen object, hiding from the authorities under the International Space Research Program, ISRP. He runs to the forest unseen until he catches sight of the same spinning UFO lingering around. Isaac tries to record the UFO using his video camera, but it suddenly disappears. Confused, he turns around and finds an alien creature right behind him. Isaac seizes the chance and subtly records a video of the alien facing him. Shortly after, the alien ignores him and turns around. In instinct, Isaac runs away from the alien, but a blue light hits him. The news regarding the fallen object breaks out, and the media depicts the object as a meteorite that reached the Earth. 3 days later, Isaac wakes up on a hill beside a sea. He finds his video camera near him and watches the footage he recorded, revealing a blurred image of the alien he encountered. Isaac is also able to record how he was abducted by aliens when the blue light hit him. In shock, he stares blankly at the horizon before feeling a jolting pain on one of his forearms. When he comes home to his apartment, Isaac finds that he can make his television disappear by staring at it. Isaac begins wondering whether he is hallucinating as he observes the objects around him. He stares intently at the video camera, able to make it disappear and reappear in front of him. The following day, he consults with a doctor for a checkup. After an X-ray, the doctor reveals that his forearm has a perfectly straight, hair-thin fracture. His arm has been precisely cut, which the doctor finds to be strange. Isaac arrives at the NASA GPL afterwards to talk to his colleague Beck. In response, Beck is surprised to see Isaac suddenly show up at work. Isaac places a cup on a table and tries to make it disappear in front of Beck. After staring at it for a few seconds, the cup seemingly disappears, but Beck does not react. Confused, Isaac tells Beck how he got the cup to disappear, only to find that Beck still sees it in its exact same spot. Isaac then shows Beck his recorded footage of the alien along with his abduction, but Beck is unable to tell if his video is real. He informs Isaac that he has been gone from work all week and that their boss has been looking for him. After a while, Greta arrives in the laboratory. While she continues to study the fallen object that landed on Earth, she suspects that the object is not a meteorite due to the lack of evidence. Isaac tries to convince Beck to tell Greta about the video, but Beck won't tell her, thinking that Isaac's video might be a hoax. Annoyed, Isaac heads back to his apartment and uploads his recorded footage to the internet. His video becomes viral in an instant, garnering mixed opinions from the people. While some are convinced that his abduction video looks real, some other reactors think that Isaac edited the video by himself to seek attention. He gets a call from a number of journalists and news outlets interested in creating a story from his video. Later, Isaac appears in a televised interview with a journalist named Christine Schaefer. During the interview, he tells Christine and the viewers about his abduction experience in detail. On the other hand, Christine throws misleading questions towards him, showing doubts on Isaac's story. Following his interview, many other journalists, bloggers, and visual effects supervisors reacted to his abduction video. Isaac feels troubled and annoyed that more people believe that his abduction is fake, so he focuses on finding more proof on alien abductions. He searches online for testimonies and news articles that point to possible existence of aliens. After a while, he discovers a blog post from Sarah, a girl who shares the same abduction experience as him. Isaac then arranges a meetup with her at a local diner. Inside the diner, Isaac suddenly hallucinates and sees the objects in the diner floating around. Sarah arrives soon after, and the two compare their experiences. Isaac shares the research he has gathered, from the earliest accounts of the aliens to the most recent. In turn, Sarah tells Isaac about the alien abduction incident in Alaska back in 1979. Isaac gives Sarah his contact details before Sarah leaves the diner. After a few days, Sarah calls Isaac, in which she tells him more about the abduction of Carl Meissner in 1979 in Alaska. As Isaac's video is internationally being debunked as a hoax, he becomes dedicated to providing more concrete evidence about the aliens. He produces several copies of his abduction footage, sending it to many different space agencies. While mailing the tapes, a man who claims to be a writer named Keith Oberman approaches Isaac. Keith offers to write and publish Isaac's real sentiments regarding the alien encounter and gives him his business card. Convinced, Isaac visits Keith's office the next morning. Keith suggests that Isaac takes a lie detector test to make his abduction story solid and undeniable. Isaac agrees, and Keith initiates the test soon later. After being asked a series of questions, Isaac passes the lie detector test. Just then, Keith leaves his office and men in black suits arrive to capture Isaac, knocking him unconscious. When he wakes up, he finds himself being dragged by two white android soldiers inside an empty, spacious room. At the same time, android soldiers also hold Sarah captive in a different room. Keith reveals his real identity as Agent Graves, an official working for the ISRP who was leading the men in black and the android soldiers. He and the ISRP know about the alien abductions, and they begin their observation of how much Isaac has been exposed to the aliens. Agent Graves confirms that there are alien tracking devices inside Isaac's and Sarah's arms. Afterwards, he suspects Isaac's abilities, instructing him to stare at several different objects. As the test ends, he asks Isaac if he has any information regarding Carl Meissner. However, Isaac is disoriented and he refuses to fully cooperate with Agent Graves. Just then, Agent Graves accidentally reveals that he is currently looking for Carl in British Columbia. Isaac hears this as he frees himself from the binds and defeats the android soldiers in his room. He hurries towards Sarah's room and the two of them escape the facility using Isaac's abilities. Outside, Isaac and Sarah realize that they have been taken in a remote forest in Costa Rica. They rush out of the forest and towards a small eatery while they are being chased by Agent Graves' android soldiers. Isaac and Sarah are left with no choice but to reach Carl and talk to him. A young woman from the eatery directs them to Zed, a hacker who has undetectable access to the internet. Later, they find Zed inside a restaurant and he agrees to help them find Carl. Around the same time, android soldiers arrive at the place, urging the three of them to retreat to Zed's small hideout. Along the way, Zed shares his knowledge about the ISRP cops, saying that they are a secret agency that works for the United Nations. While Zed prepares his computer and looks for Carl, Sarah, and Isaac talk on the corner. The two appreciate the view in Costa Rica, both agreeing that it is a beautiful place to live in, if not for their current status as refugees. Sarah then admits to Isaac that she already knew about him before they'd even met at the local diner. She tells him her story, saying that she was abducted during her vacation at her aunt and uncle's cabin in the mountains. In reply, Isaac manages to express his inner feelings and realizations to Sarah. He thought that uploading his abduction footage on the internet would allow more people to see it and believe him. Later, Zed reveals that Carl has no visible records or hints about his location. As a result, Isaac recalls what he heard from Agent Graves and thinks about any link between Carl and British Columbia. Just then, he remembers the signal from Canada he and Beck previously detected at NASA. He instructs Zed to hack into one of the satellites from NASA so they can retrieve the location of the signal. Isaac learns that the signal from Canada points to a remote forest in British Columbia where Carl Meissner is hiding. Zed sets up a video chat on Carl's computer and they all see him briefly, revealing his aged appearance. Just before Isaac could talk to him, Carl quickly rejects the call. They call Carl for the second time and bypass his computer security, allowing him to automatically connect to the call. Afraid that Carl would hang up, Isaac tells him everything as fast as he can. He introduces themselves and talks about their abduction, how they found him, and that they need his help in finding answers. Carl interrupts Isaac, asking him to send the audio signal that he got back that one night. After he receives the audio signal, Carl transcribes the file in his device and translates it into language. As it turns out, the unreadable audio signal that Isaac received was a message from the aliens, informing them of their arrival to British Columbia in 5 days. Shortly after, Carl abruptly ends their call and they lose contact with him. Isaac becomes insistent on meeting Carl and the aliens. He manages to convince Sarah to come with him while Zed decides to tag along. That same day, the trio set out to travel in British Columbia. They avoid public vehicles to prevent themselves from getting caught by Agent Graves and the android soldiers. Zed leads them throughout their travels, using his connections to board a plane out of Costa Rica for the three of them. On the other side, Agent Graves utilizes the tracker in Isaac's and Sarah's arms to find out that they have left Costa Rica. He then instructs all the agents and android soldiers to meet in Canada and look for them, including Carl. Isaac, Sarah, and Zed arrive in British Columbia in the morning, and they ride a train that leads to the nearest town to Carl's cabin. On the train, Sarah and Isaac get to know more about each other. Just then, Zed's laptop detects the presence of android cops nearby, and the three find themselves cornered inside the train. In defense, Zed gives them a mask that confuses the cameras of the android soldiers. The trio seat separately and stay still as the android soldiers scan their faces. An android soldier stops in front of Isaac, momentarily confused of his face but eventually detects them. They run to another train carriage and successfully kick the android soldiers out of the train. Isaac, Sarah, and Zed hitchhike the rest of the trip and later reach Carl's cabin. Security cameras detect them and soon Carl comes out holding a shotgun. Fortunately, Carl recognizes their faces and allows them to stay with him. Before letting them in his cabin, Carl disables the trackers on Isaac's and Sarah's arms. The trackers instantly deactivate and Agent Graves loses contact with Isaac and Sarah. He heads to the ISRP facility and overrides a command, which reactivates the arrest warrant for Carl. He then orders all forces of the ISRP to head to his cabin. Inside the cabin, Carl shares that he was also once kidnapped by the ISRP cops after he was abducted by aliens, but he escaped as well. He shows the trio his entire working area, filled with monitoring and communication devices to contact the aliens. According to him, he needed to find a way to make contact with the aliens, seeking for answers. Carl bought equipment from research facilities, saying that he has been accumulating the equipment for a long time. Moreover, he discovered a way to decode audio signals to language while in hiding, prompting him to learn about the arrival of the aliens. Isaac suspects that with Carl's invention, he can effectively communicate with the aliens. Eventually, Carl also tells them his full alien abduction experience back in 1979. Later, Sarah discovers a phonograph while exploring the cabin. She activates it and everyone listens to the music, falling silent for a moment. 2 days before the aliens arrive on Earth, Zed returns to Carl's working area. He studies his equipment with full interest and is about to touch a knob when Carl suddenly catches him. Zed admits that he is impressed with Carl's collection of radio transmitters. He wonders how Carl was able to learn about audio signals, knowing that he was previously a lumberjack. Outside the cabin, Isaac and Sarah spend their time around nature while talking to each other. Gradually, Isaac overcomes his inability to express his inner feelings and finds himself able to tell Sarah his thoughts. During their talk, Sarah begins to acknowledge that she has felt differently as a human being since they were captured in Costa Rica. They wonder whether their exposure to the aliens has something to do about it, and if it is a good thing that they have changed. Later, Sarah wakes up in the middle of the night and finds Isaac outside the room. Isaac walks into the room, telling Sarah how grateful he is that the two of them met, before wishing her a good night. The next day, a rumbling sound surrounds the cabin, indicating the arrival of the aliens. Isaac walks out of the cabin and looks around into the woods until he encounters an alien for the second time. He, Carl, and Sarah meet with one of the aliens face to face, and they successfully communicate using Carl's translation device. Isaac confronts the alien and asks why they were abducted. The alien says that they have already conquered science, medicine, technology, and the physical world. In effect, they turn to learning greater things beyond their understanding, specifically the origin of the universe. The alien later shows them a vision of Jesus Christ's image. As it turns out, the aliens deem that Jesus Christ is an important link to finding out the origin of the universe. They abduct human beings to study them since knowledge on Jesus Christ is most accessible to humans. When Sarah asks why their arms hurt, the aliens show them the tracking device implanted inside them. The aliens have been using the tracking device for their records. They remove Sarah's tracking device at the same time the agents from the ISRP surround Carl's cabin. The alien tells Isaac that his struggle to find proof is impossible to overcome because they live in a world where seeing is believing. Just then, Agent Graves calls Carl to confront him about his father's death, who apparently was among his lumberjack colleagues in Alaska. Carl, on the other hand, emphasizes that he knows nothing aside from seeing him inside the truck on the day of the alien abduction. Agent Graves accuses Carl of lying, and the agents shoot him with laser guns. Sarah runs to Carl and reveals herself to Agent Graves, but she is immediately shot by them. At this time, the alien removes Isaac's tracking device as well and tells him to use his senses. Following the alien's advice, Isaac focuses on his senses and uses it to fight against Agent Graves and the rest of the ISRP agents. As the agents shoot their laser guns at the cabin, Isaac fully unleashes his telekinetic powers for the first time. He also develops time manipulation skills, making his attacks appear extremely fast, which the agents don't notice. Isaac uses these skills to bring Sarah, Carl, and Zent with him as they escape from the cabin. After a while, the aliens approach Sarah and Carl and heal them. They all quietly leave the agents and escape the cabin through the aliens' UFO. After the laser gun attack, Agent Graves roams confusingly around the cabin just before he catches sight of the UFO flying away. 6 months later, Isaac uses telekinesis to control his video camera as he records another diary entry. In the aftermath, Isaac and Sarah move to Costa Rica to live a normal life together. The couple has built their own eatery in a small town, and Isaac subtly uses his developed skills in their everyday lives. Zet and Carl have teamed up and are currently working in a new underground tech intelligence agency. Meanwhile, Agent Graves was deemed guilty for abusing his authority, which resulted in his immediate dismissal from duty. The film's opening scene showing the abduction was interesting to watch. The language used in the scene showing Isaac's work at NASA was not completely technical, but rather enough to make the ordinary viewers understand. Throughout the end, however, the plot went to a massive turn, in which philosophical questions about the universe are brought up all at once. It ended with a strange and misguided blend between science and religion. Furthermore, it is a waste that the film runs for 2 hours, but has not touched many aspects of the plot. For instance, the antagonist Agent Graves is suddenly revealed to have so much emotional baggage towards Carl for what happened with his father, but there was no hint of such throughout the movie. Overall, the premise of the film is common, but not overrated. It could have been portrayed better with improvements in the script and plot execution.